International Atomic Energy Agency confirmed today that Iran has exceeded its limit of enriched uranium allowed under the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. We will discuss the prophetic implications of this announcement and touch on the prophesied Middle East peace agreement on today's edition of End of the Age. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dave Robbins with Endtime Ministries. Thank you for joining me on this edition of End of the Age. And I have some good news for you this afternoon. Many of you are probably still wondering, where's Irvin Baxter? Well, I talked to him yesterday, and he is sounding a whole lot better. He's coming out of the woods, and I do want to thank you this afternoon. I know he does as well, for all of your prayers. We've had people all over creation praying for him and doing a lot better. Talked to his wife this afternoon, my wife did, and they ate lunch. He ate lunch today, and he slept several hours last night without coughing. So he's doing a whole lot better. This morning he called me yesterday and asked if I would do the program at least today and tomorrow. And of course I'm happy to do that, but just wanted to give you guys a good report on Irvin Baxter, doing a whole lot better. Looks like there's a light at the end of the tunnel on this thing. Man, it's been really rough. And so I do want to thank you guys today for the prayers that you have prayed and continuing to pray for him to come out of it, because, man, it's been a rough road for him for several weeks. And so hopefully he'll be in here Wednesday. That's the plan as of right now, because he wants to get back on the radio. I mean, he's like, you know, he's been bound to his house pretty much, and so wants to get back in here. Hopefully he'll be back on the radio on Wednesday. Now, I want to start out today because you understand the next two prophecies on God's prophetic time clock are the peace agreement in the Middle East and World War III. Well, those are going to be my two main subjects today, mostly on what's going on with the World War III, or the potential for that. Let me touch on the peace agreement first. You remember Daniel 9:27, it prophesies that the Antichrist will confirm a covenant with many for a final 7-year period. That agreement will be the confirmation of God's covenant with Abraham that Israel would always have a homeland in the promised land. Genesis chapter 15:18. It was an everlasting covenant. And it still pertains to Israel today. The fulfillment of that prophecy is going to be the signing of a peace agreement between Israel and the Palestinians. And that agreement has to do 4 things. And I want to keep touching on these because you should be able to these ought to be on the top of your mind. Number 1, this peace agreement will establish a Palestinian state in Judea or the West Bank, or at least an autonomous situation allowing the Palestinians to govern themselves. Number 2, it's going to allow the Jewish settlers living in Judea to remain in their homes, living as a Jewish minority in that Palestinian state. And then number 3, it's going to place the Temple Mount under an internationally supervised sharing arrangement. And it's going to allow Jews and Muslims and religions from all over the world to worship there, mainly Jews and Muslims. And that's the main dispute with that today. And then it's going to allow Israel to build her 3rd temple. So when you and I, when we're watching the news and different things, we're following the news every day, when we see that prophesied peace agreement with those 4 characteristics, then you can know assuredly that the final 7 years to the Battle of Armageddon and the second coming of Jesus Christ has begun. Now you know why we watch what's going on in the Middle East so closely. And You understand what happened last week with Jared Kushner revealing the economic portion of the Trump's deal of the century last, I think, Tuesday and Wednesday in Manama, Bahrain. Well, today the Jerusalem Post announced that the Mossad chief, he stated that there's going to be, there may only be a one-time chance to bring a regional peace. You understand the Mossad, they're kind of like the CIA of Israel. And he said, he's the director, he said in perhaps his longest public speech since taking over the organization in March of 2016, he said that the Mossad does not just defend Israel's security, but it also takes big initiatives in the diplomatic arena. He took credit for moving Oman toward having an Israeli diplomatic official officially working with it to following extensive clandestine meetings with the Mossad. And this is a very, very key statement when it comes to the Palestinian-Israeli agreement. He said that many moderate Sunni Arab countries, besides just Jordan, Egypt, who already have deals with Israel, peace deals, he said now having a wide-ranging, quiet relations with Israel, both in combating Iran and other areas of common interest, very, very important. So I'm going to hold right here because I want to make sure you get what he just said. It's very, very important concerning the Israeli peace relations right now and what's going on just last week and over the next few months. So I'll touch on it when we get back from the break.
We've seen Bible prophecy fulfilled like never before. From the halls of the United Nations to the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, Endtime Ministries continues to reveal the Bible prophecy in the news headlines around the world every day. Whether it's through our broadcast or online at our Jerusalem Prophecy College, your gifts enable us to put vital materials in the hands of those who need it most. Because of you, we continue to replace fear with faith in the hearts of Christians around the world. We will continue to see prophecy come to pass at an even swifter pace. We need your support. Your donation of any amount enables us to continue to broadcast and be a voice in the ever-growing censored media. To become a partner or give a one-time gift, visit endtime.com or call 1-800-END-TIME right now. That's 800-363-8463. Go online now. Visit endtime.com.
Have you had a longing to visit the cities where Jesus healed, ministered, and taught every day? Judy and I would like to invite you to travel to the wonderful land of Israel. Experience the Word of God in vivid color while walking down the roads of the Holy Land with us.
When you are ready to experience Israel, we recommend you travel with Endtime Ministries. You will not only experience historical and present-day Israel, you will also learn about the prophesied future to come. It's as if we traveled back in time to visit a different era and discovered ourselves in an ancient time. The tour is very well organized, the accommodations are first class, and the food is delicious. If you have ever had a desire to visit Israel, there is no better time than now. Ann from Colorado.
To sign up to receive your Experience Israel 2019 packet, call Adrian or Jana at 1-800-ENDTIME or go to endtime.com. We can't wait to experience Israel with you.
So Israel's Mossad leader, Cohen, he actually said that many moderate, and this is very, very important, many moderate Sunni Arab countries, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, different ones, besides Jordan and Egypt, they now have a wide-ranging, quiet relations with Israel, both in combating Iran and other areas of common interest. So you can see, we've talked about it many times, that many of these Sunni Arab nations, they're Sunni Arabs. Iran is Shia Muslims. So two different entities there, and they're against each other. I mean, totally against each other. So the leader of the Mossad said, look, because of these relationships that are going on right now, there is a greater possibility of peace than there have been in previous administrations. And he also said, due to Israel's unusually positive relations with both the U.S. and Russia, and these other converging trends, he conveyed a very optimistic view of the future between Israel and its neighbors. And Donald Trump and Jared Kushner, Jason Greenblatt, they all realized this going into Trump's presidency, and especially their peace initiative. When they went over there, they didn't go straight, Trump didn't go straight to Israel. He went to Saudi Arabia first. And Trump, Jared Kushner, Jason Greenblatt, they've been all over the Middle East trying to get this regional situation set up, regional arrangement, to get them to bring the Palestinians to the peace deal. So many Palestinians showed up to the Bahrain meeting last week. And so there's a lot of people interested in this. The big thing will come when they announce their political side, and they reveal that probably in November this year. So we're waiting for that to happen and to see what's going to happen with the peace deal. Now, of course, many of you have probably read this, but the Jerusalem Post, many news agencies said that concerning Trump and the Israeli-Palestinian peace deal, Trump said, it can only be achieved when I am president. And so Donald Trump, during the conclusion of the G20 summit in Japan, he said that if a peace deal between the Israelis and the Palestinians is not reached during his presidency, then it will probably never happen. Well, I'm going to get into some of the World War III stuff here in a minute, what the Democrats, some of the Democrat presidential candidates are wanting to do with Iran. And I mean, with them saying what they're saying, what he's saying may be true. I don't know at this point. But Donald Trump said, with me being president, if you don't ever get the deal done, it's never going to happen. Well, of course, that comes exactly a week after the Peace, Prosperity, Economic Plan for the deal of the century, which was released last week. The plan released ahead of the Bahrain summit, it hosted throughout the past week by Jared Kushner. It focused on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And during that summit, Kushner said that he would reveal the political portion of the peace plan soon, which we know it's probably going to be after Israeli elections in November. And he also said that the plan is going to go forth when both sides will be ready to say yes. But he did admit that obviously that may never happen. But we know that that's not a true statement. Well, with him it may be true because he doesn't know. But according to Scripture, we know that it absolutely will happen. Daniel chapter 9, verse 27. So there you are, an update on the peace agreement. There is a situation in the Middle East like there never has been as far as the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and getting a peace agreement signed. And that's all the Arab nations that are kind of forming an alliance with Israel. They need Israel and her technology, and they also need the United States and Israel's protection against Iran. So, kind of an unprecedented situation taking form here, and you never know what's going to happen when it comes to the Israeli-Palestinian peace initiative when it's rolled out in November. Only time will tell, because we know there's a peace agreement coming. It's prophesied in Scripture. Now, what happened this morning? So, like I said, there are two prophecies on God's prophetic timeline. The next two is the peace agreement and World War III, or the sixth trumpet war. These things are in every news source, a reliable news source on the planet right now. They are the top two things. What's going on with the Israeli-Palestinian situation and what's going on in the Middle East with Iran and Trump and Netanyahu. The prophecies found, Revelation chapter 9, verse 13 through 19. It's the sixth trumpet war, or World War III. Starting with verse 13, it says, "And the sixth angel sounded. I heard a voice from the four horns of the golden altar, which are before God, saying to the sixth angel, which had the trumpet, Loose the four angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. And the four angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour, a day, a month, and a year, for to slay the third part of men," a third part of the world's population. "And the number of the army of horsemen were 200,000, and I heard the number of them, 200 million soldiers. And thus I saw the horses in the vision, and them that sat up on them had breastplates of fire and jacinth and brimstone, and the heads of the horses were the heads of lions. Out of their mouths issued fire and smoke and brimstone. By these was the third part of men killed, by the fire and the smoke and by the brimstone which issued out of their mouths. For their power is in their mouth and in their tails, and for their tails were like unto serpents, and had heads, and with them they do hurt. So it's very important that we know there's a war coming in the Euphrates River region, that when the smoke clears, 1/3 of every person on earth will be killed. So it's coming up just in the very near future. It's one of the next 2 prophecies to be fulfilled on God's prophetic timeline. But before I go into the next segment, talking about what's happened today, Revelation 12:14 also says, and to the woman, or Israel, in the end time, were given 2 wings of a great eagle. We know that that's the United States, that she might fly into her place, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she is nourished for a time, times, and half a time from the face of the serpent. In the end time, Israel will be protected by the United States throughout the end time. Those are 2 prophecies that we are watching the ongoing fulfillment of as we speak. The precursors to this war in the Middle East, you say, will it be Iran, the United States, and Israel? I don't know that. I know that as far as the United States and Israel are concerned, the Iran, the #1 state sponsor of terrorism in the world, their ambitions to get a nuclear bomb are the #1 thing that the conflict that they're looking at, the United States and Israel, that they're looking at in the Middle East. Their #1 on the agenda is Iran and its ambitions to get a nuclear bomb. And look at all the conflict and the terrorist acts that Iran has done, even against the United States and just the United States and Israel in the last, 30, 35, 40 years. Imagine them having a nuclear bomb during that time. So, what happened today? Well, the International Atomic Energy Agency confirmed this morning that Iran has exceeded its limit of enriched uranium that was allowed under the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or the JCPOA. And concerning the potential for war in the Middle East region, Iran acquiring a nuclear weapon is priority #1 for Israel and President Trump, a President Trump-led United States. I say a President Trump-led United States because for some of the presidential candidates coming up, the Democratic presidential candidates, they're going to, if they were to be elected, they would put us back in the JCPOA, the Iranian nuclear agreement. They would put the United States back in, and I'll get to some of that in a minute. That's why I say a Trump-led United States. Israel Haram reported today that Netanyahu said if Israel wasn't here, the Middle East would collapse. So I'm going to go through several things about this nuclear agreement, what it was about, because you've got to understand how important this is, because there are people because #1, the United States and Israel, they're never going to allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. We're willing to go to war over that. But there are people that are running for president, Democrat individuals, who would put us back into the nuclear agreement, which would eventually allow Iran to get a nuclear weapon. So we need to talk about it. Israel Hayam editor-in-chief Boaz Boothsmith greeted Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu Thursday night at the inaugural Israel Hayam Forum on U.S.-Israel relations in Jerusalem. And regarding the rising tensions with Iran right now, I mean, it's on every news source, the Prime Minister said the Islamic Republic received a huge gift. In other words, Iran, when they signed this deal, that they received a huge gift in the nuclear deal without having to change any of its behavior. Netanyahu said within a matter of years, Iran will be able to enrich uranium without limitations, and therefore, in exchange for a temporary freeze of enrichment, it would have been able to become a global nuclear power with hundreds of nuclear warheads. Now, again, Iran, the #1 state sponsor, they've got proxies all over the Middle East. Imagine them having a nuclear warhead. And again, Iran, the United States, we're willing to go to war today if that were to happen. They're never going to allow them to have one to begin with. But Netanyahu said Iran also received hundreds of, in the nuclear deal, and this was from the Obama administration, Iran received hundreds of billions of dollars in cash and credit immediately after signing the deal, in the assumption that it would become a peace-seeking country and moderate its behavior. Now, we're talking about Iran here. They've killed American soldiers over the years. But yet we gave them billions of dollars thinking that they may help their economy. No, they turned and used it. The exact opposite happened. Iran used the money to realize its terrorist ambitions, supporting their proxies throughout the Middle East. When Netanyahu talked about Barack Obama, who signed the United States into the deal with Iran, Netanyahu said it was always difficult to challenge the policies of an American president, but he said, I felt compelled to do so. He said, I spoke to, at that time, the two presidential candidates, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, and both of them heard me out. But he said, Trump said that this is the worst deal in the world. And of course, now we know that he walked away from the deal. Don't know what Hillary Clinton would have did. I'll leave that up to your imagination. However, Netanyahu went on to say that Trump's decision to walk away from the 2015 nuclear deal between those Western powers and Iran, it was as important to him as the decision of Donald Trump to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights. Now, that's how important it is to Netanyahu. They would absolutely go to war tomorrow morning were Iran to come up with nuclear weapons. So Netanyahu said when Trump walked away from the plan, Iran tried to plant themselves militarily in Syria. And of course, Netanyahu refused to let that happen. He said, we will do what is necessary to prevent that. And they've been doing it. I think just over the weekend, there was some more bombings around Damascus and different places because Iran is trying to set up shop there. So Bismuth, the editor of Israel Hayam, he asked Netanyahu, he said, if he was worried that now this is very important. He asked Netanyahu, because many of them have stated this, if he was worried about the 9 out of 10 participants in the Democratic U.S. presidential debate last Wednesday, if they favored the nuclear deal. Now, you do understand, I want to interject this here, you do understand that many, if not most, of the 2020 Democratic presidential candidates, they favor the Iran nuclear deal and would re-enter the U.S. into the agreement should they be elected. Now, you may or may not know that, but that's absolutely the case, and I'll give it to you in great detail in just a moment. So he asked Netanyahu that. Are you familiar with that? Netanyahu said, look, we know something about this region. Iran's single greatest threat is on the horizon, and they must not be allowed to get nuclear weapons. Going back into the JCPOA means giving Iran nuclear weapons, and I will not let that happen. That's why I made the statement earlier in a Donald Trump-led presidency, because it appears if the Democrats get elected that they would take us back into the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal. That would be a travesty, folks. Now, the White House, I want you to hear this because the White House put out Donald Trump's speech back in May of 2018. President Trump announced the United States would withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal. I want you to hear from Trump why we did that. Because what he's saying is turning out to be absolutely true. And if you didn't hear the speech, I'm going to quote some excerpts from that because you need to know what's going on, because people are demonizing Trump right now for doing that. And then you can imagine somebody wanting to put us back into the JCPOA. I wanted to help educate you today what that was all about. So these are some excerpts, not the whole speech, just some excerpts from Trump's speech withdrawing us from this Iran nuclear deal. You understand, Iran wants to kill Americans just like they do Israelis in the Middle East. Should they get a nuclear bomb, there's no telling. I mean, you're talking about mass killing thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of people immediately. We can never allow that to happen. So Donald Trump said back in May of 2018, he said, "Today I want to update the world on our efforts to prevent Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon. Many people do not agree with him doing this. I absolutely agree with him doing this." He said the Iranian regime is the leading state sponsor of terror. It exports dangerous missiles, fuels that conflicts across the Middle East, and supports terrorist proxies and militias such as Hezbollah, Hamas, the Taliban, and Al-Qaeda. Over the years, Iran and its proxies have bombed American embassies and military installations, killing hundreds and hundreds of Americans. They've murdered hundreds of American service members, not to mention kidnapped and imprisoned and tortured American citizens. And the Iranian regime has funded its long reign of chaos and terror by plundering the wealth of its own people. Now, there are people, folks, that would like to put us back into this JCPOA. Wait until you hear the rest of these excerpts from Donald Trump when he pulled the United States out of this. And then think, why would somebody want to put us back in?
Move Mountains with Irvin Baxter. This book by Irvin's grandson provides 30 days of devotion that will enhance your relationship with God and others. Authentic illustrations from early morning devotions at Endtime will help you find your purpose and eliminate fears. Commit to taking this 30-day journey and experience real life change. Get your book for only $14.99. Call 1-800-363-8463 or go to endtime.com/move.
If ever people needed to hear the unvarnished truth, it is now. There are some subjects that are not politically correct to talk about, but they're urgent. That's why I'm grateful for Endtime magazine. If you're not a subscriber, you're missing information that will impact your life. Endtime has a bi-monthly magazine that explains how current events are fulfilling Bible prophecy. You can get a 2-year subscription for only $29. You can also get a bulk subscription and pass them out to your church. We have gotten reports that Endtime magazine has caused spiritual awakenings in churches when they see the prophecies being fulfilled right now. You can start your own ministry and leave them in doctors' offices, libraries, laundromats. You never know if you might be responsible for saving someone who is searching for the unvarnished truth. That's what the magazine has done in many lives. Call 1-800-ENDTIME. That's 1-800-363-8463 and get your subscription today.
If your station only carries the first 30 minutes of End of the Age, go to endtime.com and click the watch button to continue today's broadcast. You can also finish up later by clicking the archive button.
So let me continue on with a few excerpts of Trump's speech, pulling us out of the Iran nuclear deal, because I really want you to understand what's going on right now. Trump said, "No action taken by the Iran regime has been more dangerous than its pursuit of nuclear weapons and the means of delivering them. In 2015, the Obama administration joined with other nations in a deal regarding Iran's nuclear program. It's called, the agreement's known as the JCPOA. I've talked about it, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. In theory, the so-called Iran deal was supposed to protect the United States and our allies from the lunacy of an Iranian nuclear bomb, a weapon that will only endanger the survival of the Iranian regime." I mean, folks, Imagine Adolf Hitler having a nuclear weapon. Well, you've got Iran now, who's the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world. Imagine them having a nuclear weapon. Well, Donald Trump looked at it like this. He said, this is crazy. He went on to say, in fact, the deal allowed Iran to continue enriching uranium and over time reach the brink of a nuclear breakout. The deal lifted crippling economic sanctions on Iran that were in place in exchange for very weak limits on the regime's nuclear activity and no limits at all on its other malign behavior, including its sinister activities in Syria, Yemen, and other places around the world. In other words, at the point when the United States had maximum leverage, the disastrous deal gave this regime and its regime of great terror many billions of dollars in cash and great embarrassment to me as a citizen and to all the citizens of the United States. He said a constructive deal could easily have been struck at the time, but it wasn't. At the heart of the Iran deal was a giant fiction that a murderous regime desired only a peaceful nuclear energy program. Well, that's been proven to be a lie. Today, we have definitive proof that Iran's promise was a lie. Last week, and this was back in 2018, Israel published intelligence documents. You remember the Mossad went into Iran and captured them and brought them out. They published long intelligence documents concealed by Iran, conclusively showing that Iranian regime and its history of pursuing nuclear weapons. And the fact is, this was horrible, one-sided deal, should have never, ever been made. It didn't bring calm, it didn't bring peace, and it never will. In the years since the deal was reached, Iran's military budget has grown by almost 40%, and its economy is doing very badly. After the sanctions were lifted, the dictatorship used the new funds given to them, millions and millions and millions of dollars by the United States, to build its nuclear-capable missiles, support terrorism, and cause havoc throughout the Middle East and beyond. The agreement was so poorly negotiated that even if Iran fully complied, the regime can still be on the verge of a nuclear breakout in just a very, very short period of time. The deal's sunset provisions, which means, in other words, when the deal ran out, provisions, they were totally unacceptable. If we allowed this deal to stand, there would soon be a nuclear arms race in the Middle East. Everyone will want their weapons ready by the time Iran had theirs. And making matters worse, the deal's inspection provisions lacked adequate mechanisms to prevent, detect, and punish cheating, and they don't even have the qualified right to inspect many important locations, including military facilities. And not only does the deal fail to halt Iran's nuclear ambitions, but it also fails to address the regime's development of ballistic missiles that could deliver the nuclear warheads. And finally, the deal does not constrain Iran's destabilizing activities, including its support for terrorism. Since the agreement, Iran's bloody ambitions have grown only more brazen. In light of these glaring flaws, Donald Trump announced last October that the Iran deal, October of 2017, that the Iran deal must either be renegotiated or terminated. 3 months later, on January of 2018, Donald Trump repeated those conditions and made it clear that if the deal could not be fixed, the United States would no longer be a party to the agreement. Over the next several months, Donald Trump engaged extensively with our allies and partners around the world, including France, Germany, and the United Kingdom. And they also consulted with our friends from across the Middle East. And at that time, they were unified in understanding of the threat in our conviction that Iran must never acquire a nuclear weapon. After those consultations, it was clear to Donald Trump that he could not prevent an Iran nuclear bomb under the decaying and rotten structure of the JCPOA. So, the Iran deal was defective at its core. And Donald Trump said, if we do nothing, We know exactly what will happen. In just a short period of time, the world's leading state sponsor of terror will be on the cusp of acquiring the world's most dangerous weapon. Therefore, Donald Trump said today, in May of 2018, that I'm announcing today the United States will withdraw from the nuclear deal. So, now you can see it was going to allow them to get nuclear weapon all the time. And we had lifted sanctions. We allowed them to continue to surround Israel in the Middle East. A lot of different things were happening. And they could still, in secret locations, enrich uranium. And to produce the weapons that were used to deliver the nuclear warheads. So, I mean, come on, folks. We know what was going on behind the scenes here. It was going to allow them to get a nuclear weapon. Donald Trump pulled us out of that. Now, think about this. Look how bad it would be. The number one state sponsor of terrorism in the world getting a nuclear weapon. Just the worst travesty. But then, and Donald Trump pulling us out of that, putting sanction on them, crippling their economy, trying to keep them from doing it. Well, then imagine coming along and saying, well, I want to put us back in the agreement after everything I just talked about. Well, get this. On February 2019, this year, the Times of Israel reported that the Democratic Party passed a resolution calling for the United States to re-enter the Iran nuclear deal. They said the United States should return to its obligations under the JCPOA. The DNC, the Democratic National Convention, asserts in a new document indicating that the party will reverse Trump's withdrawal should it come to power in 2020. I don't know about y'all, but I don't want that to happen. I don't want to go back into that agreement that would allow them to eventually get a nuclear weapon. I mean, they've killed our brothers and sisters in the military over there. They have tortured American citizens over time. The last people on the planet I want getting a nuclear weapon is Iran. But in February of this year, the Democratic National Committee passed a resolution calling on the U.S. to re-enter the Iran nuclear deal, and a sign that the party's 2020 presidential candidates will run on returning America to the landmark pact from which the United States President Donald Trump took us out of. The document says the United States should return to its obligations under the JCPOA and utilize multilateral and bilateral democracy to achieve political solutions to remaining challenges regarding Iran. Has that worked over the years, folks? No. It really hasn't. And now we're staring at them getting a nuclear weapon. Trump unilaterally pulled the United States out of the deal last May, and he renewed sanctions on the Islamic Iran more and more, all with the intention to negotiate a new deal that would address three of his concerns: ending the sunset clause that allows restrictions on the Iran's nuclear program to expire, banning Iran's capacity to test ballistic missiles, and allowing international inspectors full access to Iran's military sites. I mean, they didn't have access to many of these. So if you were going to hide some enriched uranium, where would you hide it? On your military sites where they can't go and check. The DNC resolution is an early indication that as the 2020 campaign ramps up, that if a Democrat were to win the White House, he or she may bring the United States back into the JCPOA. Virtually all the Senate Democrats who have already declared their candidacy, many of them Bernie Sanders, Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, and Amy Klobuchar, they oppose Trump's decision to remove America from the deal. So you say, wow, well, what happened today? What really happened today? Well, Israel Haram reports that the nuclear watchdog, Iran, is in breach of the nuclear deal, the key provision for it. Iran has followed through. Now remember, the United States pulled out. But Europe and different places, they were still in the deal. But Iran said, we're not worried about that. The United States pulled out. We're going to do what we want. So they've been threatening to continue to enrich uranium. Well, Iran has followed through on its threat to breach the central limit of its nuclear deal with the major powers. It accumulated more enriched uranium than allowed under the accord. This is just in a few short days. And the International Atomic Energy Agency, they confirmed it this morning. An IAEA report sent to the member states and obtained by Reuters put Iran's stock at above the deal's limit of 300 kilograms, or about 660 pounds, of uranium hexafluoride, or UF6. Iran has threatened to increase its enriched uranium closer to weapons grades levels by July 7th. So what would that be? This coming Sunday. And the announcement comes as tensions remain high between Iran, the United States, and in recent weeks, you remember the wider Persian Gulf has seen Iran shoot down a U.S. military surveillance drone, and then there have been mysterious attacks on oil tankers and Iranian-backed rebels in Yemen launching bomb-laden drones into Saudi Arabia. So Iran, they're going at it with everybody over there. Imagine that nobody's going to allow them. Everybody over there is going to go to war before they allow them to get a nuclear weapon. And that's one of the main things that I wanted to bring out about the peace deal, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Because Saudi Arabia and many of these other Sunni Arab nations, they need the United States and Israel, they need their help militarily to confront Iran. So Donald Trump knows that. And so they said, hey, that's why the Mossad, the chief of the Israeli Mossad, he said, look, we've got a situation here we've never had before. These Arab nations that have stood behind Palestine all this time, and Palestinians have been able to fall back on them when peace negotiations disintegrated. He's saying, look, there's a new sheriff in town, pretty much. All these Arab nations are standing with Israel and with the United States now. They're having great relationships with them, and they could really bring the Palestinians to the table. Why are we talking about this today? Because these are the World War III and the potential with the Iran situation and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and a peace deal. Those are the two next things on God's prophetic time clock. World War III and a peace agreement in the Middle East. It's in every newspaper right now.
Many Christians admit end-time Bible prophecy is very complex and difficult to understand, and for some, a little bit scary. But what if you could understand Bible prophecy? What if you could know what will happen and how the United States will play a key role during end-time events? When you call today and get Understanding the End Time DVD curriculum, you can have peace about what is to come while understanding the prophetic events that appear in our headlines every day. When you call or go online to endtime.com and order, you'll learn the answer to the biggest prophecy question of all. Will the rapture take place, and when will it happen? This 14-part DVD series is the definitive end-time prophecy Bible study available. And for this limited time, you can get it for just $149. Don't miss this special offer. Understanding the End Time. Call now. 1-800-363-8463. That's 1-800-END-TIME. Or go to endtime.com today.
So these articles are everywhere on what Iran is doing right now. And they ran an article that said Iran violated the deal, so what now? Well, Israel is surrounded by Iranian proxies. We've talked about it many times. Hezbollah in Lebanon and Syria, militia groups in Syria, and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad in Gaza. Between them, there are tens of thousands of rockets that can strike deep into Israel's home front. So think about that. Think about that, the United States. Tens of thousands of rockets in Mexico and Canada that could strike into our heartland. I mean, imagine living under that. But while an attack by Iranian proxies is a major concern for the IDF, it's Iran's nuclear and ballistic missile programs that worry Israel's defense establishment the most, much more than the rockets that could be fired by its proxies. IDF Chief of Staff Gadi Eisenkot, he said that Israel keeps watch on developments, and that is the number one mission for both the Israeli Defense Forces and intelligence agencies. We are investing vast resources in obtaining the best intelligence about Iran and its operational ability. These guys are all over this. Even though they got rockets pointed at them on the north and the south, those are secondary to this Iran situation that's going on. Now, the Times of Israel reported that Netanyahu said Iran's breach of the uranium cap, it marks a significant step toward a nuclear weapon. Netanyahu accused Iran of taking a significant step toward producing a nuclear weapon today, after Iran said that it had exceeded the amount of enriched uranium it was allowed under the 2015 nuclear deal. Netanyahu said that Iran's announcement that it now holds over 300 kilograms of low-enriched uranium was proof that Iranian leaders, they've lied over the nuclear intentions all along and called on European countries to sanction Tehran. Netanyahu said, when we exposed the secret Iranian nuclear archive in April of 2018, we proved that any nuclear agreement with Iran is built on one big lie. Now even Iran acknowledges it. And Netanyahu said that soon we'll be revealing additional proofs that Iran has been lying the whole time. Netanyahu repeated his vow not to allow Iran to develop a nuclear weapon, and he called on the European signatories to the nuclear pact to hold Tehran accountable. He said the Europeans, are promised to act the moment Iran violates the nuclear deal, which they did this morning, everybody. And they promised that they would automatically enact sanctions that were imposed by the UN Security Council. And in a direct appeal to the Europeans, Netanyahu said, in English, do it. You guys, come on, just do it. And so now you can see what's going on in the Middle East. The peace agreement is ramping up. They just released, last week, they released the economic portion of the Trump administration's deal of the century. The political portion is going to be released sometime in November. That will have all the salient issues of Jerusalem, a two-state solution, the Temple Mount. I mean, everything, the weighty matters of the agreement that need to get worked out. We look at them from a prophetic perspective. So very important. That's one of the next prophecies to be fulfilled on God's prophetic timeline. The second one, World War III. Look at the Iran situation and their aspirations to get a nuclear weapon. That's number one on the United States agenda and number one on Israel's agenda. We cannot let Iran get a nuclear bomb. Today, they went over the JCPOA's quota for them to have, their ceiling for them to have enriched uranium. They passed that today. So tensions are heating up. Things are boiling in the Middle East. A World War III in that region, Turkey, Syria, Iraq, and Iran. In that region somewhere, World War III is going to emanate. These are the two biggest news stories out there right now. Look in overseas news in different places around the world. What's going on? I mean, this is huge right now. Very, very important. These are the next two prophecies to be fulfilled. Could they spark off at any time, this war with Iran? It absolutely could. So you understand, either last week or the week before, Donald Trump had initiated a military operation against Iran. 10 minutes before it was supposed to take place, he calls it off. I mean, what if he would have allowed them to go ahead and strike? You never know. We've got, I think, a couple thousand Marines were just sent over there in the Persian Gulf with helicopters and things used to strike specific positions. That was just at the end of last week. So things are really boiling right now. Now, one more, and we got to follow it because it's prophecy. One more thing I want to talk about is the prophesied world religion. And you understand the Bible prophesies, the prophecies foretell the establishment of a global religious system in the end time. According to Scripture, the leader of that deceitful organization is going to have two objectives. He's going to unite the world's religions under one belief system of tolerance. Let's just all get along, doesn't matter what you believe. And then he's going to use that pious position to influence all adherents to align with and pledge allegiance to the prophesied end-time world government. And you know, concerning the prophesied world religion, Jesus prophesied concerning the end time that religious leaders would deceive many with their false teachings. Jesus answered and said unto them, take heed that this is Matthew 24, take heed that no man deceives you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. He prophesied that there would be religious individuals that would look Christian, but their message would be deception. And deception is going to be the method used by the false prophet to create this one world religious system. Although this religious system is mentioned in other scriptures, the one I want to focus on is found in Revelation 13, 11 through 15. And it says, I beheld another beast come up out of the earth. The first beast in Revelation 13 is the Antichrist and his world governing system. This is the second beast, Revelation 13, 11 through 15. It says, I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, having two horns like a lamb, and he spake like a dragon. So he's going to look like a religious figure. When you in prophecy, when you think in the Bible, when you think of the lamb, think of Jesus Christ, the Lamb of God taking away the sins of the world. But this individual has two horns like a lamb. He's going to look like a religious figure and appear to be a religious figure, but he's going to speak like a dragon, which is Satan. Revelation 12:9 and Revelation 20 tells us that. So the Bible says, and he exercises all the power of the first beast, this world governing body, the Antichrist, before him, and he causes the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on earth in the sight of men. And he deceives them that dwelleth on the earth by the means of the miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell in the earth, that they should make an image to the beast, the Antichrist and his world government, which had been wounded by the sword and did live. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship or pledge allegiance to the image of the beast, that they should be killed. Now, this is a prophecy in Revelation 13 of a world religious system. From this set of scriptures, we learn many things about the end-time world religion. This second beast, number one, is going to resemble Jesus Christ, or a religious figure, but he's going to speak like the devil. And the leader of this religious system is the false prophet. He's going to be the most recognized religious leader on the planet, and his ulterior motive will be to use his global influence to unite the religions of the world and then cause them to worship or pledge allegiance to the Antichrist and his world governing system. Now, I'm going to go a little rogue on my people helping me in our control room, because I want to jump to an article that I found, and it's called, it says the world religions, this is from a UK paper, the world religions prepare for a global development summit. And you understand that what we're talking about here, the world religious system is going to ask those to follow after. It's going to get the religions of the world together. There we go. Get the religions of the world together, and to get them to cause the world religious system, this people they've gathered together, to focus on and pledge allegiance to the world government. Well, in this article, it says nearly 6 months before the heads of state and government convened to review the implementation of the 2020 agenda for the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development at the United Nations General Assembly, which is coming up here in September, the SDG Summit, the world religions have tasked themselves with elaborating a roadmap or lines of action that can connect religious contributions to the implementation of the SDGs. So, speaking to the participants on March 8th, Pope Francis said, 3.5 years since the adoption of the Sustainable Development Goals, we must even be more acutely aware of the importance of accelerating and adapting our actions in responding adequately to both the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. They are connected. If we are truly concerned about developing an ecology capable of repairing the damage we have done, no branch of science or form of wisdom should be overlooked. Now, let me explain to you what's going on here. The Sustainable Development Goals, adopted unanimously by every nation on the planet in 2015, are a blueprint of global governance. It's the United Nations blueprint of global governance for every person on the planet. Not every nation. This is not a nation or an international level. This is an individual level. And it's their blueprint to govern the lives of every person on the planet. Because the Pope and the Catholic Church has bought into this, the Pope wrote an encyclical in 2015 that supported, that put out the propaganda, the United Nations propaganda of human-induced global warming, which leads to climate change. And in the encyclical, he called for he gave the, the planet is heating up. Humans are causing the planet to heat up to the point where there's going to be all these catastrophes. His solution to that was, we need a global political authority to manage all of this, a world government. The Bible says in the end time, there's going to be a world religious system, and the leader of that would use his influence to cause all of the inheritance to support the global government and the Antichrist. Now, this is a precursor to that, everybody. You see what's going on here in the end time. The Pope is preparing people now to support the SDGs again this year at the Sustainable Development Summit. It's another ongoing fulfillment of Bible prophecy, and I wanted to let you guys know about it because we're living in the end time. We're not looking for the end times to begin. We're living in the end time. I just went through the peace agreement, the World War III, and the world religious system in the end time.
This has been End of the Age, brought to you by the faithful partners of Endtime Ministries. If you're not currently a partner with Endtime Ministries, or if you would like more information, we invite you to call us at 1-800-ENDTIME. That's 1-800-363-8463, or visit us online at endtime.com.
Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel and like our Facebook page.